Binge the full week of The Ray Taylor Show ad-free over at inspireddisorder.com/plus.
This is the Ray Taylor Show.
Dangal, a movie Indian film, another sports movie produced by Aamir Khan, starring Aamir Khan. This movie I've been looking forward to watching, finally got access to it. And like I said last week, I reviewed Lagan, a movie, another Indian film about cricket. This movie is about wrestling. I believe Dangal translates into the word wrestling, I believe. And like I said about last week's video, Lagan, it had the vibes of a 90s Disney sports movie. And this movie, while it may not have the 90s Disney vibes of a sports movie, it is a sports movie, and apparently it was produced in conjunction with Disney. At least the Disney intro screen showed up while watching this movie. It's a movie that came out in 2016, so not that long ago. And again, starring Aamir Khan, who I am a big fan of. And it is a sports movie, another sports movie, which I enjoy the sports movie genre. It's a genre of film that has a template that I enjoy, very similar to like a rom-com. Like you kind of know the elements to expect when watching a sports movie, similarly to most genre films, I guess, in general. And I enjoy the sports movie. It's an algorithm of emotion that always makes me feel good by the end, which I enjoy. If I'm going to watch a movie, if I am almost guaranteed to feel good by the end of it, I will absolutely watch it. It is like a drug where I know the side effects of this drug at the end. I will be fulfilled. I will be happy. I will be inspired. I will be emotionally positive in a lot of ways. And that is exactly what I got from watching this movie. A movie about wrestling, again, an Indian film where Aamir Khan's character plays a successful wrestler. And I'm not talking about like WWE wrestling. I'm talking about actual wrestling, freestyle wrestling. And in this movie, he was a successful wrestler, but never got the ability or the chance to compete for a world gold medal. Not necessarily the Olympics. He was successful in India, but I believe his career fell short, and he had high hopes. It is that sports movie where the parent has hopes and dreams for their kid to fulfill the dreams that they never were able to accomplish. And in this movie, Aamir Khan's character, who is named Mahavir Singh Phogat, he wants to have sons, and he wants for his sons to be successful in accomplishing the dreams that he was not able to accomplish in his life. And he doesn't have sons. He ends up having daughters. And of course, very disappointing, right? Especially in the time, in the place, there's women in sports, especially wrestling, was not something that was very common. Let me read the little description that IMDb has. Former wrestler Mahavir Singh Phogat and his two wrestler daughters struggle towards glory at the Commonwealth Games in the face of social oppression. So like I said, he has daughters. He's at first depressed that he didn't have sons. And like many dads that have daughters that are disappointed, they tend to raise their daughters as sons. And that's what Aamir Khan's character does in this movie. He raises his daughters. He's like, okay, a gold medal doesn't have to be won by a man. It could be won by a woman. And he decides to start training his two daughters. And he ends up having like 5 daughters or something. Like they keep trying to have kids, never has a boy. So at some point he just concedes to, okay, I'm going to train my 2 oldest daughters. Everybody in his small town, his village, is against this, of course, because women, as we find out in watching this film, women are only there to be trained how to clean and cook, and when they reach the age of 14, are married off and given away because they are nothing more than a burden. And this is an opportunity for women to finally find an avenue of success outside of the typical kind of confines of what women, the role of women were at that time. So it's got all of those themes, breaking the rules, going against the standard culture of what was, pushing boundaries, being pioneers in a lot of ways. But it also has great wrestling. Like, the training that they do is great, but when they actually start competing, I'm not somebody that's watched a lot of wrestling. I used to be a huge MMA fan for a long time. It's absolutely insane that at one point the Olympics was going to get rid of freestyle wrestling, and because it is so, like, historically, like, it's one of the oldest martial arts in the world is wrestling, and there's different forms of wrestling in many different countries, and in India it was like a form of like mud wrestling where they wrestle in like these dirt pits, and to see them compete when they start competing, and seeing them upset like these boys that they're wrestling against is great, and the wrestling looks authentic. It looks like they're actually wrestling, which I appreciate that as well, because it could easily be not. I would imagine these actors did some training, or maybe they had a background in wrestling to begin with. I don't know. There's 2 different parts. I mean, this movie is almost 4 hours. No, it's 2 hours and 41 minutes. Halfway through, there's an intermission. It's also the point in the story where the girls go from just competing in national, where their dad's the coach, to where one of the older girls goes to train to compete in the world championships. And she gets a new coach, and she's in like a dorm. It's her first time able to kind of branch out and live a life, and she's away from her family and all these things. So there is kind of a split in the story with an intermission, which is nice as well. But I love this movie. It's also a movie where you see Aamir Khan first when this movie starts is jacked. The most jacked I've seen Aamir Khan. A guy that's in great shape. In Lagan, he was much younger and also very physically fit. But in this one, it was clear he was doing a lot of heavy lifting. So it starts off with him absolutely jacked. There is a short cutscene of him younger, as a younger man, where he's not as jacked. I don't know if that was a clip from just another movie that he did, or it was before he got jacked they filmed that scene. And then there's also him when he's older and overweight, but still like clearly has the muscle. So there's like, as far as body transformation in this movie, Aamir Khan was clearly dedicated to this role and clearly massively changed how his body looked, which I appreciate. I appreciate when actors do that, whether it's Aamir Khan in this film or like Tom Hanks in Castaway, or Christian Bale in The Machinist, especially going from The Machinist to then Batman, where he was like emaciated in The Machinist and then super jacked in Batman. I appreciate actors that are willing to, change their physical appearance in order to portray a certain role, versus what a lot of the times happens, which is, I don't have a problem necessarily in Hollywood, in movies, where if the character somebody's playing goes through that transition where they lose a lot of weight or gain a lot of weight, that is like one of the few times where I'm okay if an actor has a body like a fat suit on. My issue is when they use a fat suit for a character that they should have just cast a fat person as, right? If the character throughout the entire film is overweight, then just cast an overweight actor to play that character. Don't cast like in Elvis. Don't cast Tom Hanks and put him in a fat suit the whole time. And please don't make him do an absurd accent the entire time. But if it's a character like Elvis, which they don't do in that movie, where he's supposed to gain weight over his career, and they don't put a fat suit on him. That just doesn't make any sense. But I appreciate in this movie what Amir Khan did as far as his body transformation. And it's a great movie. You know, you have these girls who don't want to learn how to wrestle. They're trying to make excuses not to wrestle, not to learn, not to follow their dad. Like, they just feel like their dad is punishing them. Like, they literally try and come up with excuses not to train anymore. And in those excuses, one of them is like, oh, they're getting fleas in their hair, right, from wrestling in the dirt. So the dad's like, okay, then we're going to cut your hair off. And then them without hair, them with short hair becomes like a thing that they are known for. And even when they get older, it's like a thing that they kind of, it's like their calling card is almost having short hair. You know, and you see a lot of training montages, a lot of competition montages as they kind of go up through the ranks. It's great. Like, just seeing them, the first match when after they've been training for a while, and he puts them into a competition where they're going to be wrestling against boys, and how, like, you know, of course the promoters don't want to put that together. They don't want, you know, the bad publicity if somebody gets hurt, but then they realize the potential for kind of the freak show of it all, having a woman take on a man, and how that can bring a lot of people to the show and, you know, sell a lot of tickets. So they end up, you know, for money, for greed, allowing it to happen. And then seeing her take on, like, the strongest, she gets to pick her opponent, and there's like 4 boys lined up, and she chooses the guy who's jacked with the 6-pack, and then she doesn't win, but she proves herself. Definitely. She puts the fear of God in this kid, right? And after that loss, it lights a fire in her, and she, like, never loses again until much later, which is great, right? It taps into my emotions. I'm getting emotional, crying, like, she's doing it. Yeah, she can do it. Like, I love all of that stuff. And of course, spoilers for what is a sports film, which a lot of sports movies pretty easily, it's usually, you know where things are going. The ride is pretty much the same. There's not a whole lot of surprises. It's just a unique version of the same story being told. So there are spoilers. So I don't want to spoil anyway. Everybody should go see this movie. It is a great movie. If you like sports movies, it's great. If you like, you know, if you're for equality, if you're for women being equal and doing the things and proving people wrong, that they have the abilities to do everything that the men can do, all of that kind of stuff. If you like that kind of stuff, I highly recommend watching this movie, because that is like the heart of this movie, is about proving all those people wrong. You know, and usually in movies like this, it's the girls having to prove to their parents that they're able to do it. Like, there's a lot of stories that kind of tell the story from that perspective, where this one is they are being dragged kicking and screaming by their dad, who wants these championships. He wants to put a gold medal on his wall, and forcing them to train and get into that sort of thing. So it's definitely a different twist on that kind of rule breaking, that kind of, you know, going against the standard, the average, the normal, which I appreciate all of that stuff. Let's take a little break from the Ray Taylor Show to promote my live art streams. That's right, I am an artist as well as a podcaster, and I paint live every Thursday at 4:20 Pacific time. Head on over, the best place ever for streaming, youtube.com/inspired disorder. That's right, every Thursday at 4:20, you can watch me paint the many faces. Every week, I paint 7 new faces of abstract portraits, ink on paper, and you can watch that happen. You can hang out with me while I listen to a classic episode from one of my favorite podcasts. Head on over to youtube.com/inspired disorder and check it out. Say hi. Let's hang out. Let's have some fun. Let's paint some faces. Now let's get back to the show. And there's a point where they get to, like, they're constantly fighting against their dad, constantly trying to find ways to avoid training, find ways to get away from that. And then they realize they talk to one of their friends who's being married away at 14, and she tells them, it's like, listen, your dad thinks about you. Your dad cares about you, and he wants you to do something that women have never been, that's never been an option for a woman to do, because women are burdens. Women are only trained to clean and cook, to be a good wife, and to get married off when they're 14, to get rid of that burden to somebody else. And your dad wants something different from you, and you should appreciate that, and you should want that ability. You should take advantage of a future that nobody else has access to here. And there's that moment where they switch, and they're like, then they become dedicated to following their dad's instructions, and that's when they start to really grow and start to really, succeed. And then again with the competitions, they get that fire lit when she loses that first match, and then goes on another montage of winning streaks of her winning. And you see, like, in her winning, you see the town start to change. You see the people around start to believe, and you see that support that they get, which I love all that stuff, right? I love all of that stuff. And it's also one of the few sports movies, maybe the only sports movie I've ever seen that breaks down the rules. Like, I didn't know much about wrestling. Like, watching it, I know kind of what they're trying to do. I've seen a lot of wrestling moves implemented in MMA. I definitely know how MMA rules work. But as far as the scoring in wrestling, I had no idea. And this is one of the first sports movies I've ever seen that breaks down the rules, the how to score the points, what each point, how to score each amount of points. Like, I've never watched a basketball movie and them go through. It's like, well, if you score a point from outside this area, it's a 3-pointer. If you score from inside this area, it's 2-pointer. If you get fouled and score from this line, then it's a single point. And after every basket, you have to take the ball out. Like, this movie breaks down the rules in a way so you understand what's happening, which really plays into, especially towards the end, when you actually see some more of the wrestling matches, especially in the finals. As they build up in the finals, you can follow along a lot more, in contrast to Lagan, which I watched last week, which is about cricket, which it takes no time in trying to teach you how cricket is played. You kind of, after watching it, you kind of get the idea of why things happen and how things happen, but it doesn't lay them out plainly like this movie does, which I appreciated. It's the first time I've watched a sports movie that really went beat by beat, and it's in him teaching his daughters when they're going from doing wrestling in the dirt pits to actually wrestling on mats for competition, for the national competition. So it's him teaching them, but in that same time, he's teaching the audience. So I appreciated that as well. And then it gets to the point where the daughter gets older. She's won all the national championships. Now it's time for her to go compete in the Worlds. And there's a special training facility for that. And she's getting a new coach. So it's her first time away from her dad. And of course, like, at first, I sympathize with the coach, her new coach, because they're, new techniques and all that stuff. But also, I can imagine a coach, there's going to be a lot of kids who are trained by their parents. And a lot of parents are going to want to be involved and going to be very critical about anybody wanting to change how their daughters wrestle, their techniques. So I can sympathize with the coach and his need for the dad to no longer be involved with the girls' coaching, right? Like, he instantly, like, there's a moment when Amir Khan's character's dropping his daughter off, and the coach instantly corrects how she's just stretching to just kind of remind her and him that she is here for her to be trained by this new coach and to forget what her dad taught her. All the quote unquote wrong things he taught her. But then as it goes, you realize that this new coach isn't utilizing her strengths in a way to make her successful, because she starts losing. Not only losing because the advice and the training she's getting from this new coach is more defensive, where her game is more aggressive, but also she's kind of burnt out. She's finally like on her own, meeting new people, kind of being able to be a girl for the first time in her life, having girlfriends, watching romantic comedies, eating food that's not good for her, because before that it was very strict. Her dad had her, had them both on strict diets, had them both on strict, training regimens and all that kind of stuff. So like having any kind of personal life, having any kind of life of their own, she had never been able to experience. And now that she's on her own, she's able to experience those things. And of course, what would happen is, you lose momentum. You lose that energy to succeed. Even so much that when her sister visits, she's like, you look different. Like when you lost your first match, you didn't sleep all night. Like you couldn't help but go back and get that win back. And now you're losing. Like she had lost in the first, she had her first like competition for Worlds and she lost it. And she's like, well, that was just my first one. And then of course another montage of her losing in all these different competitions, losing early too. And you see, it's just like burnout. Like it could easily just be burnout, which happens a lot with athletes who start off as kids, who are trained by their parents, who, never get to experience, have a childhood, play around, be girls, play, have fun, eat bad things. It's super easy to burn out. It's super common for athletes to burn out who start early. And you see that happen with her. And then it gets to a point where she realizes that, like, what's important to her. And that winning is important. And winning for her dad is important. And there's the scene where she's, like, crying. And this is after, like, she had gone home to visit. And she came home and she's like, oh, I have all these new techniques. She hadn't lost yet, so she hadn't been humbled yet. She has all these new techniques, so she goes to where her dad's training, and you see her versus her dad. And you see, I thought Aamir Khan's character was having a heart attack. Like, I was like, oh no. She's going to, like, beat him. He's going to have a heart attack and die, maybe. And then this is going to, like, I thought the movie was going to take a turn for the worst. And it was just more his pride getting killed than anything when she beat him. But later on, she realizes that these new techniques and her coaching are detrimental to her game, that her dad understood her game, and that her dad maybe doesn't know the newest techniques, but knew how to implement what she was good at in a way to win, and that he knew how to coach her the best. And there's this call that she has where she breaks down and cries, and it was just like so emotional watching that, because it's like, I don't think she even says anything. Maybe she says dad, papa, maybe, but like he's crying, his chin is quivering, she's crying, I'm crying, everybody's crying. Let's take a little break from the show to promote The Many Faces. That's right, I am also an artist. I do ink paintings on paper of abstract faces. A new face, a new painting gets released every single day over at inspireddisorder.com. So head on over to my website to purchase original artwork directly from the artist. Also, there are prints available for select images. Head on over to inspireddisorder.com, buy original art,
Buy prints if that's your jam, if you want 8x10 prints on high-quality paper. Also, if you're looking to wear some art, there are shirts available with original artwork by myself. Select faces from the many faces are also available in t-shirt form. You go to inspireddisorder.com, you buy original artwork, you buy prints, you buy shirts. You're supporting an artist directly. And if you're the type of person that likes to invest in NFTs, there are also NFTs available for select faces. Go to inspireddisorder.com now. And now let's get back to the show.
So the dad's like, screw this, I am going. And their cousin is like their training partner growing up. And he's like, I will, wanting to go with the dad to go travel to this place to supplement her training. And their cousin's like, I need to go. Like, I'll cook your dinner, I'll wash your clothes. I'm the good luck charm. I need to be there. So they go, and like behind the scenes, they're doing all this supplemental training. She's trying to sabotage her weight loss because her coach doesn't have any faith in her. So he wants her to fight at a lower weight class. And her dad's like, you fight just fine. You're just fighting the wrong game. And you see him watching tape. You see them having to rent out like a porn theater in order to use their projector to watch tape on her matches to give her, proper game planning for these matches she has coming up. It's so great. And even the final match, there's moments where they cut to her sister cheering her on. And it's like, oh my, like the performances in this movie are amazing. But just watching her sister cheer her on is like everything. It was the best. It was the best watching her sister cheering her on as she's doing these, going through these difficult competitions, like facing people that she had lost to before, people that counted her out, and having to deal with the fact that her dad is trying to help her, and the coach's ego is so inflated that he's trying to sabotage her dad's training, which I understand kind of why a coach would not want a dad or a parent to be interfering with his training. But at the same time, it's clear that coach had kind of written her off as just like, you just get a medal. He's like really not caring about pushing them to get a gold as much as the dad is. Like there's aspects, you really see how this coach becomes the villain in this situation. And you see also how they're literally giving her the opposite like recommendations and coaching. Like when her coach is telling her to work defense, her dad is telling her to attack and use offense, and vice versa. When her dad's like telling her to just play defense, she'll get frustrated, and you'll see your moment. Just frustrate her, keep frustrating her, play defense, and you'll see her make a mistake. Once you see her make a mistake, then you'll be able to launch your offense and score points. And versus the other coach, her coach is telling her, it's like, just be aggressive, trying to match the aggression. Which has to be painful as a kid, taking in literally opposite information from two people and having to make sure you listen to your dad and not the coach. But it's great. Even like the build up, the final matches are great when her dad goes, and you see her coach become full villain when he sets up a situation to literally lock her dad in a broom closet somewhere in the stadium before her final match. And it's just like you see him locked in there. Again, I thought he was going to have another heart attack in there. Like I kept waiting for Aamir Khan's character to die in this movie. Spoilers, he doesn't die. But he gets locked away, and it's like, oh no. And she's like, he's not there in the stands. It's her biggest competition. But she has her sister there just cheering her on, which is like, just seeing her sister cheer her on like brings tears to my eyes, And to see how she finds success and how that match ends in such an amazing way, which makes the fact that he told the audience gave the audience all the rules of how to score points. And of course, the one way of scoring points that we had not seen plays a major aspect, and it's a great scene, right? How it ends is like they slow it down. It's in slow motion, and it's beautiful. It's a beautiful move how this thing ends, how this match ends. And it's like so good. Like the celebration that her sister has, her cousin has, the crowd has is beautiful. And the way the way Amir Khan's character finds out that she wins by hearing the national anthem, the first time India has won a gold medal, locked away in a storage closet, a broom closet, has no way to get out, no way to coach his daughter, no way to help the situation, absolutely no control over the situation for the first time. And to hear the national anthem, which he's never heard before, the first time a woman has won gold for India, it's beautiful. Because you hear like, oh, they're going to play the national anthem, they're doing the thing, and you see him in there, and then you can't even hear it, but you can see that he like immediately recognizes the national anthem, and that's when he knows. He's like, success. And then he finally gets out, and she gives him the medal, and he's like, yeah, and then he puts it around her neck, because it, like the way it's handled in this movie, you don't know how like accurate. I mean, it's based on real events, but you don't know how accurate it is. But the way it plays out in this movie is beautiful. Like so heartwarming, so great. And at the end of the movie, when they're the postscript where it's like, what happened next? It was like the other sibling went on to win a bunch of medals. They both went on to win a bunch of medals. They inspired women's wrestling in India, where nobody had won a gold medal before, and it completely changed what women could do in India. It was beautiful. It was absolutely beautiful, this movie. I absolutely loved it. So much fun. Another great movie starring Amir Khan, produced by Amir Khan, and I'm so glad I got to watch it. If you get a chance, if it's available, Dangal, Dangal is the movie. I absolutely loved it. It's a great sports movie, family friendly, inspirational, motivational, heartwarming. It'll make you cry. It's a tearjerker. It's a great movie. I absolutely loved it. The performances were all good from both the younger versions, the older versions, the physical transformation that Amir Khan goes through. I mean, even in just the beginning of this movie, when you see Amir Khan, he is just jacked, where he's watching a wrestling tournament on the TV and another wrestler, and they get into it and they wrestle each other in this like office space. It's like, two giant jacked dudes, but Amir Khan's a lot shorter. But it's like, whoa. And then the next scene, you see him, he's old and fat. After he had his kids, not wrestling anymore. Great. I'm a huge fan of Amir Khan, huge fan of this movie. Highly recommend it. So check it out. Dangal.
New episodes of The Ray Taylor Show come out every single day. Subscribe on YouTube and everywhere our podcasts are found. Binge the full week over at inspireddisorder.com/plus. Buy Ray Taylor Show merch over at inspireddisorder.com. And follow the show on Instagram at Ray Taylor Show. Have a wonderful day, everybody. Peace out!
Today is the day where you wake up and you realize that everything that you've been dreaming about, everything that you've been wanting, every goal and wish and hope that you've ever had can become real. Dreams can come true. What you manifest in your mind, you can bring to reality.